They say the silence of space changes a person, but sometimes it's the silence inside a ship that leaves the deepest scars. The medical bay of the starship Intrepid was quiet, lit only by the soft hum of overhead panels and the gentle pulse of diagnostic monitors. Commander Dererick Ross stepped through the sliding door, the hiss of hydraulics punctuating the stillness. He had come to review the status of their botanical samples, but it was the figure seated near the far window that drew his gaze. She sat with her back straight, hands folded over a data pad, eyes fixed on something beyond the glass, a blur of stars drifting like ghosts. Her skin was pale, mottled like wind-scarred stone. Her limbs too long, fingers too thin, as though someone had drawn her with hesitation. And her face defied symmetry, one eye larger than the other, 3 breathing holes in place of a nose, and a patchy collection of coarse brown strands that passed for hair. Her name was Neri. To most of the crew, she was a discomfort wrapped in a uniform, an alien presence that made them take longer routes through the corridors, eat at different shifts in the mess hall, and whisper when they thought no one could hear. But not Dererick. He crossed the room slowly, boots echoing against the cold floor, stopping a few paces from her. Neri. She turned, blinking slowly, her asymmetrical eyes focusing on him. Commander Ross. Her voice held an odd resonance, 2 notes speaking in harmony, gentle but unfamiliar. I've catalogued the last of the Proxima IV flora. Sample 7B may contain regenerative compounds. Dererick offered a quiet nod, folding his arms across his chest. That's good. You've been thorough. A pause. Then, as if she couldn't help herself, she said it. You don't flinch when you look at me? The words landed softly but carried weight. He met her gaze, unreadable, and after a moment he shrugged lightly. I've seen worse. Neri tilted her head, not in insult, but in curiosity. Most humans find my form disturbing. Most humans are idiots, he said simply, then added, but I suppose they've seen too many polished faces in propaganda hollows. Real people don't look perfect. Even humans. For the briefest second, something moved on her face, a twitch of the mouth, perhaps a smile. Or the closest her species could manage. She looked back toward the stars. Among my kind, I am not considered beautiful either. I was born different. Dererick stepped closer, folding down into the seat across from her. So was I. Didn't stop me from enlisting. You enlisted? I didn't look the part, he replied. Too quiet. Too slow to anger. My instructors said I lacked fire. Yet now you command a long-range vessel for the Galactic Alliance. Yeah. Go figure. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just real. The hum of machines filled the gaps. Outside the window, stars continued their eternal drift. You know, she said finally, I watch the stars because they don't judge. They just burn. Dererick looked at her, then out into the darkness. They also die. Collapse. Go nova. Beautiful things destroy themselves too. She looked at him then, really looked. That is why I find you different, Commander. You do not speak like the others. You listen. He didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. It's not much. But it's something. She nodded slowly. It is everything. Behind her, one of the monitors chirped, reminding her of the pending upload. She turned back to her pad, fingers moving with an elegance that belied their awkward shape. Dererick Ross. Let me know when you're ready to transmit the report. I will. As he walked toward the door, she called after him. Commander. He paused. Thank you, for seeing me. He didn't turn around. Just stood in the doorway, a long breath caught between motion and stillness. You're part of this crew, Neri. That's all that matters. And then he was gone. She stared at the door long after it closed, her eyes reflecting not just light but hope. Alone again, but for the first time in a long time, she no longer felt invisible. The stars above Proxima bent like ink in water as the Intrepid glided through the edge of a solar bloom. Pale light bathed the observation deck, painting soft shadows across the floor and highlighting the edges of two quiet figures seated by the panoramic window. Dererick Ross leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Across from him, Neri sat cross-legged, Daytop had forgotten at her side. No monitors beeped here. No ship-wide announcements intruded. It was a moment suspended in artificial gravity, like a heartbeat held between breaths. Your people don't dream, do they? Dererick asked without looking at her. Neri blinked slowly. Her irises shimmered faintly in the half-light. We do not dream as humans do. Our rest cycles are different. Memory is filtered, not reimagined. He gave a short nod. That's a shame. Dreams tell us who we are, sometimes. Or who we wished we were. Or who we fear we might become, she replied. That made him smile faintly. Touché. They fell into silence again. It was not uncomfortable. Since their first quiet talk in the medbay, moments like this had begun to happen more frequently, encounters that didn't revolve around duty or orders. She had taken to bringing her samples to catalog near him. He found himself wandering past xenobotany when he didn't have to. Neither of them mentioned it. Neither needed to. Tonight felt different, though. Neri's voice came, softer than before. Among my kind, relationships are complex. We do not bond easily. Dererick turned his head slightly, curious. Because of biology? Because of history, she said. Her hands folded neatly in her lap. The Vidians once trusted recklessly. It led to devastation. Now, we test. We measure worth in unseen ways. It is necessary. Dererick studied her carefully. So, you're always testing people. Only those who might matter? The deck lights dimmed slightly as the ship adjusted for night cycle. Their faces shifted in tone, stars glowing brighter in the reflection of the glass. He could see her profile sharp, strange, but somehow familiar now. And what happens, he asked slowly, when someone passes the test? Neri did not answer immediately. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. Do you remember the first time we spoke? You did not look away. I remember. You listened. Even when I said things most humans would find uncomfortable. He shrugged lightly. You were just being honest. You treated me as an equal, not an experiment. not a curiosity. Because you are? She met his gaze. Then know this, I was testing you. I needed to know if you saw more than a shell I wear. If you would recoil like the others, or if you could see the mind and soul underneath. He leaned back slowly, processing her words. So, did I pass? For the first time, she smiled. Not a twitch or subtle movement, an actual smile, foreign and beautiful, even on a face most would call unsettling. You did. Dererick felt something shift in the air. Not tension, not fear, something electric. Unnamed. Neri stood then, slowly, carefully, like someone making a decision they couldn't take back. Commander Ross, she said, more formally now, I will be entering transformation phase. He straightened. Transformation. She nodded. Her voice carried both weight and something almost sacred. Among the Vidians, this is our most guarded truth. We are not as we appear. Our natural forms are hidden, protected, only revealed to those we have judged worthy. His throat tightened. You mean, you're going to change? She stepped closer, her silhouette bathed in starlight. It is not change. It is return. This form, this body, it's a mask, a filter. Biological, yes, but intentional. You passed the test. Now you will see the truth. Dererick rose from his seat. Neri, wait. Are you sure? I have never been more certain. He didn't know what to say. There was reverence in the air now, and something deeper, a trust so profound it quieted the mind. She gave him one last look. Do not fear what you see. Then she stepped back, her body beginning to shimmer, molecules vibrating at frequencies his eyes struggled to follow. A faint glow erupted from beneath her skin. The transition had begun. Dererick took one step forward, then stopped. He had been entrusted with something rare, something sacred. He would not interrupt. Outside the window, stars burned on. And behind him, in the quiet hum of the observation deck, the woman who had once been invisible, began to become something else entirely. 4 days passed. The cocoon hung from the ceiling of the observation deck like a translucent lantern, its surface pulsing with slow waves of inner light. Sometimes it shimmered faintly, like breath held underwater. Other times it remained still, almost lifeless. But Dererick came back every day. He would sit beneath it, alone with his thoughts, reading aloud from ancient Earth novels, or simply watching the stars slide by in silence. He spoke to it. Not often. Just enough. Enough for her to know he was still there. Then on the fourth night, the air shifted. It was subtle at first, the way a room feels before a storm breaks. The cocoon began to pulse more rapidly, the light inside growing in intensity. Dererick stood, the book in his hands forgotten. Hairline fractures appeared along the surface. Then, with a soft sound like silk being torn, the shell split open. He didn't breathe. Emerging from the cocoon was not the awkward figure he had known, but something transformed. Neri stepped forward, barefoot on the cold floor, her new form radiant and unreal. Her skin now shimmered with a smooth emerald hue, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Her body was strong, graceful, her posture proud. Long strands of silver-white hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the deck lights in ghostly threads. Her face, once uneven and alien, now held a delicate symmetry: high cheekbones, full lips, eyes large and luminous, rimmed in silver. She wore what looked like a ceremonial garment, green fabric that clung to her form like liquid, part armor, part ritual. At the center of her forehead pulsed a small mark, softly glowing. Dererick took a step forward. Neri. She met his gaze. Her voice was different now, clearer, richer. Yes, Commander. It's still me. He tried to find the words. You're different, she offered gently. Beautiful. A faint smile touched her lips. I was always beautiful, Commander. You were simply the first to see it. He laughed, a low, stunned sound. Fair enough. For a moment, neither spoke. The distance between them remained. Not out of fear, but reverence. As if one wrong word might shatter something sacred. Then she walked toward him. What you see now is my true form. Vidians only reveal it when we find someone worthy. Once transformed, we cannot go back. So this, it's permanent. Yes. It is the highest vow my species can make. Dererick swallowed. And you made it for me? She nodded. You passed the test, Dererick Ross. The observation deck door slid open behind them. Lieutenant Marco stepped in, a day-top hat in hand. He stopped mid-step, his eyes locking on Neri. His jaw dropped. Commander, is that Neri? It is, Dererick said evenly. Marco looked between the two, confused, awestruck. Then, without another word, he backed out and the doors closed. Dererick exhaled. That's going to be the first of many reactions. Does it bother you? She asked. He hesitated. No. What bothers me is that now, everyone will see what only I saw. And they'll think it's about this. He gestured vaguely to her radiant form. She tilted her head. And is it not? No, he said quietly. It was never about that. She looked at him with something between gratitude and sorrow. That is why I chose you? Later that night, he found her in the xenobotany lab. She stood beneath a soft green glow of containment pods, studying a sprouting vine from Arcani's 4. Despite the transformation, her posture was the same. Her focus, her quiet stillness, it was all still Neri. You're not hiding anymore, he said from the doorway. She didn't turn. And yet, they'll only see me now. He walked closer. Let them. We'll remind them who you've always been. She finally looked at him. Her eyes shimmered. You already have. There was something else behind her eyes now. Not just trust, but longing. A question unspoken. And perhaps, in him, an answer rising. But neither moved. Not yet. Outside, the stars spun on, unaware or perhaps watching quietly as one truth gave way to another. And a love that had begun in silence, began to burn. The shuttle arrived without ceremony, no salutes, no pageantry. Just the sharp hiss of pressurized air and the measured thud of boots on metal. Dererick stood in the docking bay, arms folded, jaw tight. Behind him, the crew whispered in cautious tones, casting sidelong glances as the tall Cantheran figure stepped off the ramp. 4 eyes, 2 atop 2, scanned the hangar like a hawk dissecting prey. Admiral Vexthric. Cold, calculating, and famously disdainful of humanity. His voice came without preamble. Commander Ross. This vessel appears adequate. We aim to please, Admiral, Dererick replied evenly. Thric's upper eyes flicked toward the escort officers, who snapped to attention. His lower set narrowed on Dererick. Word has reached the Council. A Vidian transformation aboard a human vessel is unprecedented. Dererick didn't blink. Specialist Neri remains a valued member of my science team. And yet no mention of such a transformation was submitted through the appropriate channels. Curious. It was personal. Personal. The Admiral's voice sharpened like glass. There is no such thing as personal in matters of xenobiological interest. Thric turned. Where is she? In the xenobotany lab conducting analysis. Without another word, Thric strode down the corridor, his boots clicking like a metronome of control. Dererick followed. Inside the lab, Neri stood as always composed, focused, radiant. The green glow of her skin reflected off containment chambers as she logged notes onto a transparent screen. She didn't flinch when they entered. Specialist Neri, Thric said, stepping into her space. So it's true. She looked at him calmly. Admiral. He circled her slowly. I have studied Vidian biology for decades. In all my years, I have never seen a transformation. You must understand how rare this is. I understand, she said, her voice neutral. And I have already submitted a full biological report. What you have submitted, he said, is insufficient. Your form is now a matter of scientific significance. I am transferring you to the research vessel Empirical. Dererick stepped forward. With respect, sir? Thric raised a hand. This is not a debate, Commander. Orders have been processed. She departs tomorrow at 0800. The room fell into stunned silence. Neri didn't speak. She stood very still. Dererick clenched his fists. She is a citizen of the Alliance. Not a specimen. She is a biological marvel, Thric snapped. And you are too close to this. If you object on personal grounds, say so now. Dererick said nothing. He couldn't. One wrong word could end everything. Thric turned. Dismissed. The lab doors closed with a hiss behind him. Hours later, in the stillness of Neri's quarters, she sat on the edge of her bunk, hands trembling in her lap. Dererick stood at the far wall, unable to pace, unable to breathe right. He said my transformation was wasted, she whispered. Dererick crossed to her. He's wrong. He said I should have saved it for a more evolved species. Dererick's jaw clenched. You don't belong to him. I don't even belong to you, she said softly. No, he agreed. But you chose me. That has to mean something. She looked up. He has the power, Dererick. You don't? Then we change the rules. Her brow furrowed. How? He took a breath. Vidian bonding rituals are protected under the Cultural Preservation Act. That symbol on your forehead is recognized as a marital marker under galactic law. Her eyes widened. You're suggesting we invoke spousal protection? But we are not. We are. In all the ways that matter. She stood. You would risk your command. I'd risk more than that. She touched his chest, palm resting over his heart. Then let's make it real. The next morning, at 0755, the docking bay was quiet. Admiral Dererick stood near the boarding ramp, flanked by two officers. Dererick and Neri approached hand in hand. The moment they stopped, Dererick spoke clearly. Under Section 47 of the Alliance Charter, I formally invoke spousal protection regarding Specialist Neri. Her transformation qualifies as a recognized bonding right. You may not remove her without my consent. Dererick's eyes widened an expression of shock among his kind. Then narrowed. Convenient timing. Legal timing, Dererick replied. Neri lifted her chin. I chose him. Not as an experiment. As a partner. Dererick's voice turned cold. You'll regret this. Perhaps, Dererick said. But not today. The Admiral turned sharply, cloak whipping behind him. As the shuttle doors closed, Dererick let out a breath. Neri leaned in. We just declared war on power. Then let's win it together. Above them, the stars blinked slowly, witnesses to a love that refused to be dissected. The High Council chamber of Arcturus Station was not built for comfort. It was built for judgment. 17 seats rose in a semicircle, each occupied by a delegate from a founding species of the Galactic Alliance. Their features varied: tentacled, scaled, feathered, or flesh, but their expressions were carved in identical stone. Behind them, a gallery of onlookers watched in stiff silence. Dererick Ross stood at the center of the chamber in full command uniform, the silver trim at his shoulders catching faint glints of starlight from the transparent dome overhead. Beside him stood Neri, radiant in ceremonial Vidian robes. The glowing mark on her forehead pulsed gently, defiant and proud. Admiral Dererick's voice filled the chamber like a cold wind. Members of the Council, I submit that the Vidian known as Neri has triggered a transformation of unparalleled biological importance. Her presence aboard a human vessel, under the command of a species with less than a century of interstellar participation, represents a serious breach of interspecies protocol. He paced slowly, his four eyes scanning the room. We must consider the precedent this sets. If such bonds can be manipulated, masked as romantic attachment, then the integrity of cultural rituals will erode. The Vidian transformation was never meant for humans. A ripple of murmurs followed. Dererick stood motionless. The Florian delegate, with a crystalline exoskeleton that shimmered like ice, leaned forward. And what of the spousal protection claim? A legal technicality, Dererick said with a flick of his lower hand. Exploited to avoid scientific oversight. The Altarian chairwoman lifted a slender finger. Commander Ross, you may respond. Dererick stepped forward, his voice low but steady. Esteemed Council, I did not seek this bond. I earned it. Specialist Neri revealed her true form to me after months of collaboration. I saw her when others would not look, I listened when others turned away. This transformation is not a deception. It is a declaration. He turned slightly, gesturing to Neri. The symbol you see glowing on her forehead is not an aesthetic flourish. It is a sacred biological marker of choice. She chose me. Not as a specimen. As a partner. Thrix scoffed. And you expect us to believe that a human species barely beyond its solar cradle was worthy of that honor? A voice rang out from the gallery. I do. All heads turned. An older Cantheran stepped forward from the shadows, robes marked with the seal of the Science Academy. Dr. Marin Vox, the chairwoman, acknowledged. You have leave to speak. Vox moved to the center, bowing slightly. I was Admiral Thrix's mentor. I also lead the Alliance's division on xenobiological ethics. I have reviewed the data surrounding Specialist Neri's transformation, and I find it legitimate. Thrix's eyes narrowed in disbelief. You disgrace our lineage. I uphold it, Vox replied. This is not a distortion of science. It is its purest form, choice driven by character, not genome. And I speak as someone with a personal stake. He looked toward the gallery where a human woman stood quietly, tears in her eyes. My wife is human, he said simply. We have kept our union private for decades. But I will not hide it any longer. Gasps echoed. Neri reached for Dererick's hand. He held it tightly. The chairwoman raised her hand for silence. Are there others who wish to speak to this matter? A rustle swept through the crowd. Then one by one, couples rose. A human man and an Altarian woman. A Vidian with a Terran linguist. A woman composed of shifting nonites holding hands with a scarred engineer. Dozens. Hundreds. The chamber no longer held silence. It held truth. Dererick turned back to the council. This is not about a bond between two beings. It's about what the Alliance stands for. If we deny this connection because of species, then we are no better than the divisions we claim to rise above. Neri stepped forward beside him. Her voice, melodic and unshaking, rang out. I am Vidian. My people taught me to test hearts before we reveal our truth. Dererick Ross passed that test. Not with science. With kindness. With honor. She raised her chin. If you strip me from his side, you strip my will, my agency, and my culture's deepest right. A long silence followed. Then the Altarian chairwoman stood. This council has heard all it needs. We will render judgment. They withdrew behind a crystalline barrier, voices low but firm. The chamber held its breath. Minutes passed. When the council returned, all stood. The bond between Specialist Neri and Commander Ross is hereby recognized as valid and sacred under Alliance law, the chairwoman declared. Furthermore, we find that Admiral Thrix's actions represent an overreach of authority. He is hereby reassigned. Thrix's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Cheers erupted from the gallery. Neri turned to Dererick, eyes shimmering. We didn't just win. We changed everything. He smiled. Let's make it count. Above them, the stars bore witness not to a judgment, but to a beginning.